The Illusion of Ownership, Diddy-Diageo, and the Power of Control. Welcome back to another episode of Forbidden Knowledge. And today we are digging deep into a topic that speaks to the heart of business, branding, and the true power of ownership. A lot of people think that they own something that they actually don't, or a lot of us have been under the impression that others have owned things that they actually don't. And so today we're going to break it down and we're going to talk about how you can truly own what it is you want to own. Okay. Many of us have seen celebrities like Diddy associated with major brands, right? And automatically assume, oh, they own the companies, right? No. But is that really the case? Today, we're going to dive deep into the relationship between Diddy, Diageo, and explore why ownership matters so much more than ever, especially in a world that often confuses branding with actual control. Let's set the siege, okay? So, for years, Diddy was seen as the driving force behind Cîroc, owned by the massive company Diageo. In the early 2000s, Cîroc wasn't a household name. It wasn't even really doing well, if you think about it, in the market. But once Diddy entered the picture, things changed, right? So he brought his larger than life lifestyle and his personality and his credibility in the culture and his marketing genius. Okay. So all the marketing that he did led us to believe that he actually owned Ciroc. And that's oftentimes what marketing does. Marketing is an illusion. Okay. So Ciroc became synonymous with Diddy's brand. Now, if you were like most of us and you probably thought, wow, Diddy owns Ciroc, he's made himself into a liquor mogul. Like, wow, that happened fast. Usually it takes much longer. He didn't own Ciroc. He did not own Ciroc. In fact, his role was more like that of a brand ambassador. You see influencers on social media, they get paid to represent different brands. So essentially, that was his role with Diageo, but we thought he owned it. Diageo still owned the brand, and Diddy was compensated based on sales, basically. Um, but he didn't have equity or control. Equity and control. So when you're starting a business or starting anything related to the creation of something, think about equity and control. Those are the two things that most even business owners don't have within their industries. For those who don't know, I'm Kika. I own Black Box Franchising. We actually help turn small businesses into national franchise brands. And we see this all the time. Small business owners do not actually own their intellectual property and they wind up losing it in the end. So, Black Box Franchising, we help you actually own your brand. And if you're thinking of becoming a national chain and you want to make sure you're doing it the right way, go to intro.blackboxfranchising.com or www.blackboxfranchising.com. Sorry, I had to drop that. He wasn't calling the shots on product development. He wasn't calling the shots on pricing or not even the strategic direction of the brand. So this brings us to an important distinction, the difference between being the face of a brand and owning the brand. How many people do you know that are a face of a brand that they don't own? Let that sit for a minute. Imagine being the face of your own brand that you own. This idea of celebrity ownership is something we see all the time, right? A big star is associated with a brand, and we naturally assume that they own it. But what often happens is we don't realize many cases they're simply the face of the brand, not the owner. If it's a sports player who's really good at football and the company wants to sell their product to football players, they're going to channel that message through the celebrity who plays football to get more people to buy it. Okay. So Diddy with Ciroc I mean, he wasn't the owner. He was a brilliant partner who pushed the product into the mainstream. So, yes, I see you in the comments. And don't get me wrong, he was incredibly successful in doing so. Okay. How many of y'all, I'm looking at the comments now, how many of you all have purchased Cîroc in your lifetime? Put a one in the chat. Okay. His influence and partnership did wonders for Cîroc. It actually brought Cîroc into culture, into nightlives, music videos. But in the end, Diageo held the real power of the ownership. So when you think about all of the amazing products that you love, who actually owns it? Who owns the intellectual property? And a lot of the times in business, we're doing business, we don't even own the trademarks. We don't even own the name. We're just doing business. And so that's why I'm so passionate about black box franchising, because we're actually helping people own every single piece of their brand, like forever. Okay. So and this isn't just like a Diddy thing. It happened with many, yes, yes, exactly. It happened with many celebrities over time. We're often sold an illusion that these figures are in complete control, when in reality, they're playing a specific role in the business. Okay. Why does ownership matter? Put in the chat why you think ownership matters. Not just like, oh, to make money, but really, why does ownership matter? Okay. Um, so why does ownership matter? I'm going to tell you. So having equity, actual control matters more than just being associated with a brand. Why? Because when you own something, you have the power to make decisions. How important is that to all of you, to actually be able to make decisions? You decide what direction the company takes, and you shape the brand, and most importantly, you control the profits. Hello, but controlling the profits comes last. We all want to feel free making decisions, doing all these things. And that's why I say, like, owning a brand is one of the highest levels of freedom that you can experience in small business, because you're actually creating something that you own, and you can, do things at your own will. Of course, you should seek advisement, but you can make decisions and call the shots and actually direct the sales of your brand. And let's not get it twisted. Owning a business and a brand are two separate things. What's the difference? Hit me up on Instagram. You see, I think it's in the corner. Yes. Kika I am. Hit me up on Instagram, okay? And I'll tell you all about it. So Diddy may have made millions off his partnership with Diageo, but without ownership, he didn't have a say in the bigger picture. He was a partner, not the owner. Okay. So it's important for anyone listening who's an entrepreneur, who's a business owner, or even a creative. You want to be in the driver's seat, not just along for the ride. Too many of us have been along for the ride for decades. Okay. I had to say it like that. We need to be in the driver's seat. And I'm going to tell you how. Own every element of your brand. How do you do that? How do you learn to do that? Go to intro.blackboxfranchising.com. Okay. Um, you want to own the brand, not just represent it. Who cares who represents whatever? You want to own it, right? That's where the true power lies, in owning the brand. So let's talk about some celebrities and entrepreneurs. Yeah, I'm reading the yes. Let's talk about some celebrities and entrepreneurs who've made sure that they held ownership in their brands. Put in the chat right now any celebrities that you are aware of that have held ownership in their brands. Let's see if you get these right. Okay. Jay-Z. When he launched Tidal, he made sure to maintain ownership of the company, right? So he later sold the majority of it, but he did so on his terms and made a significant profit. That's what it's about, doing it on your terms, right? Then Dr. Dre with Beats. How many of y'all have Beats by Dr. Dre? Okay, the sound is amazing. He didn't just endorse the product. He didn't just collect the pay. And we have to stop being on the consumer side of everything, and we have to start owning Not everything, but a lot of things. Okay. So we have to shift from consumer to owner. He didn't just endorse the product, he co-owned it. And when Apple, this is crazy, when Apple bought Beats for $3 billion, he walked away with a huge payout because of his ownership stake. Okay. And then there's Rihanna with Fenty. Ugh, the Fenty beauty line, I love it. Shout out to Rihanna. Um, the products are amazing. I was just speaking about her products to somebody else. She didn't just lend her name to a makeup brand. She didn't just say, call it Fenty by Rihanna. She co-owns it. She has equity in the business and can steer its direction. So important. That's why she's now considered one of the wealthiest self-made women in the world. Shout out to Rihanna, okay? These are prime examples of individuals who weren't just content. Oh, I'm thinking like content creators who just they weren't just content, okay? To be the face of a brand. They demanded ownership, they held on to it, and they thrived. So, the lesson here for anyone watching is that ownership is power. If you're building a brand or you're starting a business, you really need to ask yourself, do I own this? Like for real, do I own this? Um, am I in control? Do I own the tagline? Do I own the logo? How do I own the name? You can't just register a business and own the name. You have to trademark it. Do you own every single element of it, right? Too often, especially for young entrepreneurs and creatives, especially creatives, because you kind of get lost in the creation and the beauty behind that you leave the business side to the side. It's easy to get caught up in the allure of partnerships and collaborations. But without equity, without ownership, you're giving up your ability, your control, the ability to control your future. Who doesn't? I don't like that feeling. We don't control our futures 100%, but I need to control it as much as I can, right? And true ownership is how you can do it. So, sure, the money looks good now. That's how they get people. Oh, you want this check, this check. But tell me, pay me in equity. Didn't Jay-Z say that? He said, pay me in equity. Were we just bouncing our head in the club and having a good time, or did we listen? Listen, pay me in equity. The money might look good for a short time, but long-term wealth comes from owning the business, not just promoting it. Can I get an amen in the chat? Where is everybody? Can I get an amen? Oh, or whatever y'all want to say, but I'm gonna put an amen. If Diddy had ownership in Cîroc, his wealth from that partnership would be exponentially greater. Okay. He would have had the power to guide the brand in the direction that he wanted to guide it in, to sell his stake, or even to build it into something much more. But he didn't have that power because he didn't own it. But because he did it, his influence, while still valuable, was limited. He was dependent. You become dependent on the owner. Ooh. He was dependent on Diageo for the big decisions. He couldn't just do what he wanted to do. He had to authorize and get approval. So how do you secure your ownership, right? How do you do this? We briefly talked about it, trademarks. How do you make sure you're not just the face of a brand? How do you make sure you're not just the face of your brand, but the one who's calling the shots? First, always negotiate for equity. EQUITY. I need everyone to write that down, look it up, and pin it to your wall, your blackboard, your whiteboard, whatever you got. Equity, okay? You need to secure equity. You have to always negotiate equity first. And I believe this episode is going to change a lot of lives, partnerships. There's a lot of small business owners who are going through a lot right now, who you may feel desperate. You may say, let me partner because I need money. Again, it's not about the short-term money. It's about the equity. So don't do anything. Well, I'm not going to say that. But depending on the situation, make sure you secure some of the equity. Whether it's a small store startup or a big brand, you need to have some ownership in the company. Okay. Number one. Even if you're working with a larger entity, having equity ensures you're not just working for a paycheck, but for long term wealth. How do you feed your kids? Through equity. That's why I love franchising. That's why I love black box franchising, because we're teaching small business owners how to take their brand and make it last for generations to come. Franchising helps you scale across the country with, other people help you pay for their stores. You're not paying for all the stores, and they help you scale your brand across the country. Understand contracts. The power of contracts. Don't go on Chat GPT. Don't try to ask your friend, your homeboy, your homegirl to make you a contract. Go to a lawyer. Go to a real one. Because if you have a horrible contract, and actually this happened early in my career, I had a horrible contract about, some business. And I looked back at it and I was like, what the? But those contracts bind you. You're binded by the contract. So if it's horrible, you're literally bonding yourself to something that is going to hurt you in the long run. So I need you to understand the power of contracts. I need you to hire real lawyers. Make sure your agreements clearly state your role, your ownership stake, and your rights as a partner. All of that. Take notes. Don't settle for just being a brand ambassador if you're helping to build, the company. If you're helping to build the company, no, pay me in equity. I don't just want to be a brand ambassador. Finally, build your own. Ooh, say it with me in the chat. Say it with me in the chat. Build your own. Build your own. If you have the resources and the vision, create your own brand. Just create your own brand. That way, you control everything from start to finish. You determine how the profits are split, what direction the company takes, and how it grows over time. Okay. Now, to be clear, Diddy has been a business legend to us. We're not talking about all the other things happening. We're just talking about the business, right? He didn't own Cîroc. His legacy in the business world is undeniable. Okay. From Sean John to Revolt TV, he's shown that he understands how to build brands and elevate them in culture, right? But the lesson from the Diageo deal is one we can all take to heart. Okay. Ownership matters. Ownership matter. Write that in the chat too. Diddy may not have owned Cîroc, but he's been involved in ventures where he does or did hold ownership. And those are the businesses where he truly built his wealth, the businesses that he owned. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a creative, or someone just starting to build their own empire, remember that the real power lies in ownership. It's not enough to be associated with success. That's a bar. It's not enough to be associated with success. You have to own it. People kill themselves to be next to the hottest person, next to the hottest brand. What is that really doing? It's good for a cute picture, but if there is no ownership, if there is nothing there, it's a waste of time. Okay? So it's not enough to be associated with success. That needs to be on everybody's phone as a screensaver, like for real. You have to own it. So, in conclusion, Diddy's partnership with Diageo is an example of how things can appear one way in the public's eye, but in real life, the real power lies behind the scenes. And actually, for one of my Kika, one of my brands, I really wanted to grow a brand with my name on it, but also be behind the scenes and not have to be the face of it. It is a whole nother thing when you're the face of the brand, but not the face of the brand. Now that's a bar, Jay-Z. Where you at? That's a bar. Okay. Ownership is what allows you to have control to shape the future, your future, and shape the future of the brand. Okay. And to secure your financial future, because it's not just about short term income, it's about long term wealth. Don't just be the face of a brand, be the owner. Shout out to all of the faces of brands I know who also own the product. That's a whole nother level of creating an empire, right? Build something that you can control. And also, don't go crazy and try to create something that you can't control. It's very easy to do that. Build something that you can control, that you can pass down, and that will continue to create wealth for you long after the partnership ends. What? Yes, I said it. Thank you so much for tuning in to Behind the Hustle. Or actually I changed it. The Scale, Behind the Hustle. We're doing all the things here. Um, if you found this episode insightful, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, of course, right? So my new show time will be Saturdays at 10 a.m., trying a new time. Very excited to continue to build with all of you. And you can bet that during my shows, we're going to talk about business, the history of business, how you can win in business, and all the things. So stay here Saturdays at 10 a.m. And I promise you, I will help you understand all of these things. And most importantly, we will win together. Go to blackboxfranchising.com and also visit me on Instagram, Kika I am. Okay? It was great, y'all. I'll see you next week, Saturday, 10 a.m.